If you didn't see my original one, basically what this is a build that you can gold out and run on all your different classes, and this is even stretching that out further by having the ability to play different roles as well as different classes. This makes a great healer build, it makes a great support build, and of course, for what I do, 1vx and small man PvP, this is just a damn solid build. So if that interests you, stick around and we'll go over everything you need to know. Alright, first up is the gear. Now, we are running Rallying Cry. This is damn important. In PvP at the moment, the biggest problem damage-wise, outside of corrosive DKs, is crit damage. Crit damage is just out of control. Rallying Cry is the best way of getting crit resistance. Now, I've been looking at Impen trait and also the CP, and they're just all not really worth it. So with this and the base Impen, you're looking at 3.2k, which is basically mitigating the base crit damage multiplier. So if no one's got any other crit damage multipliers, they're gonna hit you like it's a non-crit. These you wanna run with weapons because we don't necessarily wanna be in light in our body, but if you do, then you could run Orders weapons. And that leads us into our next set, which is Orders Wrath. This kind of is an underrated set. I think people are starting to cotton on to how good and how strong this is, and to be honest, if it wasn't a crafted set, it probably wouldn't be worth farming for a lot of builds, but it just makes sense with Oak and Soul builds, with crit damage and then our mass amount of crit chance we have on this build. It just makes a lot of sense. So for those that don't know it, it is crit chance, oh god, I've gone blank, spell damage. And then the 5-piece is 8% crit damage and 8% crit healing. So we're running obviously the crit damage Mundus on this build, and then through our CP, on top of mass amount of crit damage, we have a mass amount of crit healing. And this is kind of where we're getting our tankiness from outside of corrosive. Now, if you guys see my previous DK build, that had a lot higher corrosive uptime, but we were very squishy outside of corrosive. And on this setup, we are definitely tankier out of corrosive, and we definitely hit harder. So in my opinion, I like this build more than my original DK build, but there just depends what you're looking for, really. I wouldn't necessarily say one's better than the other. Alright, to finish off the build gear-wise, we're looking at 1-piece Magma. Now, if you don't have Magma, you can run Trainee here or another 1-piece Monster Helm set, but obviously Magma's our best option here. It's giving us mag and stam recovery. And then, of course, the dreaded Oak and Soul. I know a few people weren't happy with my comparison video, but no matter how you compare these builds, Oak and Soul is just in front at the moment by a wide margin. Unfortunately, that's the truth and that's the way it is. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Yes, you can buy Rallying Cry, yes, you can craft Orders Wrath, but you will have to farm Oak and Soul, unfortunately. That being said, it is a lot easier. I got my Oak and Soul in an hour and a half. I think my missus got all her leads in a couple hours too, so it's a lot easier now than it used to be. I will preface this before we get any further in the build. This is going to get nerfed. I don't think it's going to get nerfed till next update, so we have 6 weeks, and I don't think it's going to get nerfed as much as it needs to be nerfed. So I think we've got a while where these builds are going to be solid. Okay, so a few other things gear-wise. On my DK, I am running bow. Now, when we do Templar Pacific and other Pacific builds, we'll go over the weapons, but for DK, I think bow just is the best. I've gone between sword and board, 2-hander, and I just always come back to the bow. We get our speed buff, so it frees up a spot on our bar, and we're obviously getting that 7% crit chance, which with our mass amount of crit damage and crit healing, this is really beneficial. But do feel free to play around with the different weapons and see what you like. Now, I'm running 2 Swift and 1 Infused, but once again, play around with these to see what you like. And then on our body, I'm running 2 Heavy with our crafted orders, and these are reinforced, and then 1 Light with our Rallying Cry, and then the rest are medium, well fitted. I have been playing around with a bit of in-pen here and there, but I think the in-pen body trait is still a bit meh. But if you're not a dodge roller, definitely give in-pen a try. So our skills are basically identical to my original DK build. Now we're running coagulating blood. This is just a massive burst heal. When we get a crit on this as well, it's just a massive reset. It just resets the fight. We're running vigor. Obviously, this is our hot. This is really important for when we get that offensive window to get some nice heals coming back. And we're getting 5k crit heals here, so massive hots. Then we're running burning embers. Now, I was umming and ahhing about this, but we're actually getting some really solid damage and really solid healing out of this. You know, if I'm in a 1v2, 1v3, I'm getting a couple K healing and the damage is decent out of it. If you didn't want to run a bow, you'd have to probably run race against time in this slot. It's not a bad option, it's just a choice. So if you want to run a two-hander or something like that and run race against time, it's obviously going to give you minor force and you are going to hit harder. But I've found that the pressure that Burning Embers gives you is worth losing that bit more crit damage. Then we're obviously running Whip. This is just a absolute tank truck, whatever. It hits so damn hard. And if you guys watch my stream, feel free to check me out on Twitch, link in the description. You'll know that this just chunks and people will be, you know, full health and I'll whip them and they wake up in the morning with a sore butt. With this amount of crit damage and crit chance, it's just, wow, yeah, it just hits really hard. And then Breath. This is a nice AoE, and obviously while we're in corrosive, the initial hit is hitting really hard and basically can be a spammable. So that's kind of the rotation, getting Burning Embers up on our targets, and then obviously want to keep our Vigor up, and then we're breath spamming until we get a whip, and then whipping them and rinse and repeat. It's a very simple rotation. Any Oaken Soul build is going to have a very simple rotation. Now, we're obviously not getting the massive amount of uptime on our corrosive like we were in our other DK build, but we're still getting very solid uptime, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. I did mention earlier that we're running the Shadow, so this is our crit damage, crit healing Mundus. It just suits this build so well and definitely worth it. And then we are running Smoke Bear, so this is our max health, magic and stamina recovery. Now, once again, you guys should notice that I do run recovery heavy in my builds. Feel free to play around with different foods. I just find that it's just easier for me with my ping and stuff. I just like to run a recovery heavy. I don't have to worry about having resource buff all the time. But the bow is really nice to be able to get those ranged heavies in as well. And then let me think if we've missed anything. CP is pretty much the same as our original DK. I'll go through it real quickly here on screen, but nothing's changed there. But yeah, that's the build. This has been fun. As I said, I personally prefer this build over my original DK build, but you know, it's going to vary. All right, as always, boys and girls, I love you lots. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.